In my hands, I've got the LG GD510, which is also known as the LG Pop. It's being marketed by LG as a touchscreen for first-time users, beginners, and that's reflected in the price because it only costs £99. LG's idea is that you don't need a lot of the features that come in the touchscreen phones these days. So with something very basic like this, you just get the absolute bare essentials and you don't need anything else beyond that. Which sounds like a good idea on paper, but isn't necessarily the best thing, as we'll find out in a minute. But more on the form factor first. It's really nice. The weight distribution is excellent. It's just big enough so that it fits nicely in your hand, but not so big that it gets clunky or in the way. For the phone itself, it's got a 3-inch touchscreen with a very, very narrow margin around that. So even though it's only 3 inches, and that sounds very, very tiny compared to the iPhone, on the phone itself, it manages to look very big and important. As far as the home screens are concerned, there's actually 3 of them, not just one. You start off with a widget screen where you can keep moving widgets back and forth. This is actually really, really cool because if you've not played around with touchscreens before, as LG would hope you haven't if you're looking at this phone, then it's a lot of fun to drag widgets and drop them onto your home screen and then take them back the other way around. The second screen that you get, which if you scroll sideways comes up, is a live square screen. This is something that LG has been talking a lot about, and it is actually quite useful. Your most recent contacts, the ones that you've been in touch with, come up here animated as different people. So each time one of them sends you a text or a call, or if you call them, this thing updates itself. And if you click on one of the people here, you can use any of the buttons at the bottom to give them a call or send them a text, which is useful if you're keeping in touch with a lot of people or if you have a lot of different contacts that you're in simultaneous touch with. The third screen is another contact screen. This one is slightly different from the live square one because you just get different contacts listed on the page, which you can drag and drop from your contacts list onto the screen. And if you just click on them once, it gives you an option to call them or text them or whatever you'd like to do. Interesting features in this actually are the browser, because once you open up the browser, it is useful, but it's a bit clunky. It's definitely not as smooth as the iPhone. This is something I can illustrate when you open up Google. When you start searching for a page, it auto-zooms, and that auto-zoom doesn't necessarily always work. And the manual zoom feature isn't as intuitive because the LG Pop doesn't have a multi-touch interface. So that makes it a lot more clunkier. But then again, this is meant to be a budget phone, so you can't really expect the same level of performance as from an iPhone. Another problem with the phone is the camera, which is a 3-megapixel camera, but it has no autofocus, and as you can see here, there's no flash either. So the pictures you get are actually quite grainy, and a lot of them tend to be very blurred. And if you're going to use this in low lighting of any kind, the pictures aren't going to come out well at all. The good things about the phone are the fact that it actually does provide you with a pretty good interface for a £99 phone. So when you're typing out a text, you could always tilt it around and the accelerometer will give you a full QWERTY keyboard. Or if you prefer, you can go back to the candy bar mode where you have a keypad. But the touchscreen is not really that responsive. I found that I constantly had to keep bashing away at the buttons and hitting them really hard to get a response. And ultimately, because the screen is only 3 inches, if you have fingers which are even average size, you're going to have trouble hitting the right keys. So there are some bugs with the touchscreen that need to be worked out. Of course, the phone does come with your standard music player, MP3 player. It has a radio as well. But don't get too excited about online streaming because it doesn't have 3G, so you'll be stuck on edge. And as we all know, that's not the best when it comes to online applications. Same applies for web browsing, emails. It's going to take a while to download anything, so that is a major drawback. Having said that, considering it's a £99 phone, I still think it's a very good deal, and I'd recommend it to anyone who's looking for a new phone that isn't too expensive, wants to be in on the whole touchscreen market. It's a fun phone to have if you're going for a touchscreen for the first time. It does lack a lot of features, but you get what you pay for. and it's a great way to introduce yourself to that market. A really cool feature of this phone is this multi-purpose button here, which has a lot of purposes. When you get a call, just press this to pick it up, and if you want to disconnect, press it again. If you've got the menu open and you want to go back, just press this to exit. Basically, it lights up two colors, green and red. Green means go ahead and red means to go back. So depending on whichever color it's lit up, you can use it for that particular function. And obviously on a phone like this where you're trying to minimize buttons, this makes it a lot easier. And so on the whole, not a great phone, but you get what you pay for, and I'd still recommend it.